The picks are in, the draft is complete, and now the report cards are up next. And that's why we are here with you today on Draft Tonight, our draft grade special. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. I am Rhett Lewis alongside Bucky Brooks, Lance Zerline, and Matt Money Smith. And we are here to give you the recap of this 2020 NFL draft, the most unique we've ever seen in NFL history. So cool to watch the broadcast and all the interesting pieces of it. And now let's dig into the picks here, guys. You want to start with the NFC East, as we're each going to hand out draft grades. We've got 4 of us, 32 teams, so each of us will get a team within each division. And how about the Cowboys getting an A here from Bucky Brooks? Lowest grade, the Giants getting a B. We'll dig into all of them. Let's start, Bucky, with why you had the Cowboys getting top marks.
Man, I know if I'm ever working for a team again, I have an opportunity to make picks. I think it's mandatory that I have to make the picks off a $200 million yacht. Because when you do that, I think you make great picks. Look, they just did a great job of just taking blue chip players when they fell to them. CeeDee Lamb was kind of a no-brainer, even though they had bigger needs. But to get an A-level player at that point was terrific. And then in the second round, when everyone was fretting and worrying about would they get a corner, Trevon Diggs is right there for him. They just did a really good job of taking care of what they need to take care of from a need standpoint, but also getting blue chip players. And I think the pick that's going to be the surprise pick or the value pick of the draft will be Bradley Anae from Utah. Getting a pass rusher in the 5th round, a guy who is a high motor player, a guy who has some flexibility in terms of being able to be a stand-up rusher, and maybe even occasionally drop in coverage. I just think he adds value to that defense. His motor is going to be a significant factor in the way the Cowboys play defense. I just think Will McClay, Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones did a great job of knocking it out the park.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously, when you get CeeDee Lamb to slide you there at 17, and you think about all those options now that Dak Prescott has on offense, man, that is a scary opportunity. I'll shift to the Eagles here, Buck, and I got the lowest grade. You got the highest. I have the lowest. Gave him a B-, and I'll just start with Reagor, Jalen Reagor. I'm a huge fan. Look, love it, but I think when you have Justin Jefferson sitting there, it's a preference thing. I understand that. All wide receivers do different things. They fill different spots, whether it's a slot, an X, or a Y or a Z, whatever you want. But it seems like Jefferson was the better prospect. Reagor more versatile, but also more inconsistent. So I'll ding him a little bit for that one. You can buy into the pro day number. I don't, so I'll take the combine number there. They do have speed, length with their 5th round pick. John Hightower, of course. Deshaun Jackson is back. They traded for Goodwin, so certainly that's what they're looking for. But I'll get to the center of the grade, and that's obviously Jalen Hurts at 53, and I just don't get it. I don't get it with Carson Wentz there, with them preaching to everybody that would listen that they believe in him. They hand him the $120 million deal. And I love Hurts. And I personally was hoping the Chargers would have gone Simmons in the first as someone that works for that team and Hurts in the second. So I just look at it as a luxury pick for the Eagles. Wentz is 27. Again, giant extension, going nowhere the next 4 years, which is the contract that Jalen Hurts is on. If you want insurance for him, do what the Saints did for Breeze. Go get Bridgewater. Go get a Jameis Winston. Go get a veteran. So that's just kind of a head-scratching move for me. He's not, you said this yesterday, Lance, he's not Taysom Hill. I mean, he is certainly versatile. He's a dual threat, but he's just not that. Taysom Hill blocks. Taysom Hill is an exceptional special teams player. That's not what Jalen Hurts is. He has the potential to be a legitimate, solid to exceptional starting quarterback in this league. They needed secondary help, and Fulton's there. Jeremy Chin is there, and I think they just end up taking a luxury selection. You could have added Willie Gay to your linebacking core. They get Davion Taylor in the 3rd for the linebacker. Obviously, some good traits there. And maybe he develops into a solid player for them on that level of the defense. But center of the grade, guys, is really just, again, a real head-scratching move for me with the Jalen Hurts selection at their 2nd-round pick.
Yeah, I want to pick up with the New York Giants here because I gave the Giants a good solid B, and I think they had a good draft. One of the things that I like to do is I take a look at the draft picks you have, the amount of picks you have, what type of players you got. Are they impact starters? Are they guys who are just filling the roster types? And then can they change some culture? And I think Andrew Thomas is a potential culture changer. And I think Xavier McKinney is too. This is one of the reasons I liked their draft like a B. Andrew Thomas can play left or right tackle. You see Matt Peart there, who was a 3rd-round pick. a ton of traits. He's another guy who could play left tackle. He has left tackle athleticism and traits, which you could end up bumping Andrew Thomas to right, which might be, the better position for him eventually. But Xavier McKinney, after they had Landon Collins just a few years back from Alabama, the first pick of the second round in 2015, they go back to the well again with an Alabama safety. But this one's different. This isn't just a sheriff. I mean, he's got some slot cover ability as well. I didn't love the fact that they didn't add another wide receiver. I thought that could have helped. I thought a tight end, a pass catcher could have helped because, where there's smoke, there could be some fire with the Evan Ingram trade situation if there is going to be one. But they did get a couple of pretty decent linebackers. I like Shane Lemieux in the 5th round. I think he could end up being a functional average starter on the offensive line. So I thought it was a solid draft by the Giants. I wasn't blown away, but they took care of a major issue at the tackle situation, and they did it with 2 pretty talented players. So for that, I mean, they've been struggling since the Eric Flowers days when they missed on Eric Flowers. So, I thought they addressed something that had to be addressed with a brand new quarterback who came in at Daniel Jones. You got to get him protected.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense as well. And, some picks to look forward to there for sure for the Giants, and just trying to continue to upgrade that offensive line has been a sore spot for the Giants for a couple of years now. I'll finish up the division in the NFC East with a look at the Washington Redskins, who I gave an A-. And I think you start at an A when you're able to pull one of the gold jacket players from this class off the board at number 2, a generational edge rusher in Chase Young. I think they had the opportunity to overthink this, to perhaps over-entertain the idea of maybe trading out and passing up on a player like this, but instead they do the common sense thing here, stick and pick the best player in the draft class. You get him at number 2. He's the reason they are in the A range here, and everything is just a little bit of sugar. And I think the only reason I didn't keep them with the A, they only had 2 picks in the top 100. They used their 3rd-round pick on an interesting player out of Memphis and Antonio Gibson, wide receiver, a little bit of running back, perhaps skill set versatility there. Look at Chase Young there, number 9 in high school, 2 in college, 2 9s in the league. I like that. Makes sense bringing it all together there. So I liked Antonio Gandy-Golden with them as well in the 4th round. I think it gives him an opportunity, to throw up some of those balls, that big catch radius that he can bring. And then Sadiq Charles, a talented player. Obviously, some of the character off the field concerns there in his career at LSU. I would have perhaps liked to see a little bit more of a commitment early on to replacing Trent Williams, who is now traded to the San Francisco 49ers. But still, overall, really good draft. You get a generational player in Chase Young and an A- in my book. So that wraps up the NFC East. With that, should we move on through the AFC East and take a look at our grades here? Okay, not, we're average. We're kind of average in this division. We went a couple of Bs here with the Bills and the Patriots. The Jets do get into the A range here, but Lance, let's start with the Dolphins, who had the 3 first-round picks, but you're only giving them a B-.
Yeah.
Explain yourself.
Yeah, you sound like Twitter. What say ye? Here's what I say. So you had a ton of picks. Obviously, I'm not just going to give you an A because you had a ton of picks and could add a ton of players to your roster. That was a given. We knew that was going to happen, and they're in good positions. You had 3 first-rounders, a couple of second-rounders. But when I look at what the Dolphins did, I think it's a very high-ceiling, low-floor draft, and that's the one thing that concerns me a little bit with this draft is I expected to see more singles and doubles in there where you really start to build a strong core foundation. Now, that still may happen. Just because you have high ceiling, low floor, Tua Tagovailoa is a very, very talented player. But I think right now, until we know more about the medical situation, if that is still a concern, and he does have durability concerns, that's a little high ceiling, low floor. Austin Jackson, to me, is going to need a year or 2. Noah Igbenogany is going to need a year or 2. I hit it. Robert Hunt coming off of an injury. I'm going in order, by the way. Raekwon Davis, the football character, is a little concerned. The talent is not a concern. So when you go all the way down their first 5 picks, that's a lot of hit or miss potential with guys who I see high upsides on, but they all have a little bit of floor concerns, and that's why I ended up giving them a B-. I actually thought they did a little better late in the draft. Didn't like Solomon Kinley in the 4th round, like Curtis Weaver in the 5th, and I think Jason Strowbridge has a nice opportunity to become a player in the 5th round as well.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here on the Patriots. I think early on they were knocking it out of the park here. They traded out of the 1st round. I ended up giving them a B, just a solid draft, especially when you look at the top of the class. They move back, acquire some extra picks. They end up getting Kyle Duggar, really, really nice player from Lenore-Ryan, Division II college, and made an impact at safety. I think he's going to be a really fun piece Bill Belichick use on defense. And then you get an edge rusher in Josh Uche who come in there and provide some pressure on the quarterback. If they're in the round. And then Anthony Jennings screams Patriot to me. They're at number 87 overall in the 3rd round. The thing that kept me from moving the Patriots grade up is the fact that they made no hesitation in spending early to mid-round picks on quarterbacks while Tom Brady was there. 2nd rounder Jimmy Garoppolo, 3rd rounder Jacoby Brissett, Jarrett Stidham, also who's obviously still there and has a chance to succeed Tom Brady here. But the first year that he's gone, they don't go quarterback at all when they had multiple opportunities to do so, which tells us one of two things, right? Either this draft class at quarterback was not what they wanted, was not highly regarded in their minds, or 2, they're just really satisfied and set to go with Jarrett Stidham or Brian Hoyer. So those 2 things yet to be. And then again, in such a deep class with wide receivers, not a single wide receiver. I might have chose a different tight end if I was going to go back-to-back tight ends with Devin Asiasi and then Dalton Keene. Maybe would have thrown a Hunter Bryant in there, or Harrison Bryant, rather, if I had an opportunity to do so. But still, really good draft with a B.
All right, I'll take the Jets. The only A on the board, gave them an A-, and I think, look, it starts with their 1st-round pick, and they were in that spot where they could decide, are we going to go with one of the elite tackles, or are we going to go with the number 1 wide receiver? We get to pick, and I tip of the cap to them for going tackle and protecting Sam Darnold. I love Mekhi Becton. I was able to watch a ton of his film as DJ was doing his grade on one of the flights while we were, up in the air for 4 or 5 hours. So I got to watch a ton of him, and man, he is a fun prospect to watch. You look at what Trent Brown has done for that Raiders offensive line, and you think about a massive individual like Becton and what he's going to be able to do for the Jets. You see Denzel Mims here, just size speed. You're talking about sub 4.4 at 6'3". I know, there's some work to be done there, but Sam Darnold helped bring Juju Smith-Schuster to national attention when he was at USC, and I suppose he'll do the same with Mims. I love Ashton Davis, the safety. You think about, the defense that Greg Williams runs, cover 2. I see it with Gus Bradley in LA calling the games for the Chargers, and that means a lot of defensive backs on the field a lot of the time. You see Bucky tweeting out here about Ashton, world-class athlete, potential to emerge as an A+ safety. And he slid to the 3rd because he didn't have a pro day. He didn't work out at the combine. The pro day doesn't show up. He doesn't have an opportunity to meet with teams. That's how you end up to pick number 68, as opposed to maybe being in the mid to high 2nd round. So I just take those first 3 picks. Zuniga, you talked about, low floor, high ceiling, just all the traits there. Yeah. Zuniga moved him all over the field, and just absolutely love this draft. And don't forget, Braden Mann, just the best punter available in all the drafts. So,
yes,
Joe Douglas and the Jets. All right, Bucky, wrap us up here in the AFC East.
Well, the Bills, I give them a B. And look, some people say a B is average, but I think it's just a solid overall grade for a solid overall class. The one thing that I love about Buffalo is I think they draft in character, meaning the guys that they pick fit the fabric of the locker room, fit the culture that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and that staff has established, meaning tough, blue-collar workers, guys that get it done without a lot of fanfare. A.J. Epinesa, he fits that mold. He's a worker bee off the edge. I think he's going to give them some pass rush ability, even though he's more of a power-based rusher. Zach Moss is one of my favorites. And when I think about Zach Moss, I hate to kind of put him in lofty company in terms of the way that he plays, but he reminds me a lot of Frank Gore, who they recently had. And so a tough, physical, downhill player. You had Epinesa and Zach Moss, 2 solid players that should be contributors. I think they're going to be fine. I think it's going to be a really, really solid draft and a class that really contributes for them.
Yeah.
God,
I forgot about Tyler. Well, you also forgot about Tyler Bass. Okay, the leg that we saw down in Mobile at the
Well,
Senior
this is
Bowl.
the
Okay?
special team division here. I didn't mention my long snapper, Blake Ferguson. Should I get that one in there? Six-round long
You should
snapper.
get it in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think this is a nice spot for Jake Fromm also. And I'm excited to see how Josh Allen can benefit from having a guy like that on the roster as well there in Buffalo. So we will continue here on Draft Tonight, our grade special with a look at the AFC and NFC North. How do the Packers grade out with Jordan Love as a first round selection? Next.
As we welcome you back to Draft Tonight, handing out grades for each of the 32 teams following the 2020 NFL Draft. And let's get started before we get to some grades with Pro Comparisons presented by Lowe's. Lance, I'm going to start with you. Receiver out of LSU, Justin Jefferson. Yeah. How about a pro comparison there?
He's a little tough. I've thought he looks a little like Greg Jennings. DJ thinks he's Keenan Allen, but with more speed. I think he's like Marvin Jones, but from the slot instead of outside. So he's kind of a unique player, but like Marvin Jones, you see Justin Jefferson has the ability to get out of his stems quickly. He's got great body control, strong hands, and that's where I think Marvin Jones stands out. He's got the ability to put the ball away on the second level. If you need him down the third level, he can get out there. He needs a little bit of scheme. He's not the fastest guy, and a lot of people don't think that Justin Jefferson plays at the same speed that he ran at the combine. But I think there's similarities in their body types and in their games. It's just that Justin Jefferson can play outside inside where Marvin is more outside. But I do think there's a decent similarity and comp value there. And I think his production could be very similar to what we saw with Marvin Jones over his career, which has been very good in two different teams.
19 spots ahead of Justin Jefferson, the Detroit Lions made Jeff Okudah the top cornerback off the board, number 3 overall. Bucky, who's your pro comp for the Ohio State star?
There are a couple of pro comps that I had for him. Originally, I had Darrelle Revis, but now the more I think of it, Jeff Okudah is very, very similar to Stephon Gilmore when Gilmore was coming out of South Carolina. The 2019 Defensive Player of the Year is a very technically sound player, a guy whose technique and his knowledge of the game allows him maybe to play better than his athleticism would suggest. When I look at Okudah, I can see him coming in and being a lockdown corner, playing in a defense that's very similar to the Patriots defense where they put their corners in man-to-man about 60 to 65% of the game. I think Okudah is going to shine. And look, there's a lot of pressure on him because they got rid of Darius Slay in essence to bring him in. But I think his game and his mentality makes him the dog kind of competitor that will kind of live up to the expectations.
Yeah, lofty expectations with that B-roll we were just watching. Those are pro comparisons presented by Lowe's. And that brings us to our grades for the NFC North, our first C appearance. A couple A's, B minus, but Bucky, you're the one that handed out the gentleman's C. Maybe it wasn't a gentleman's C. C plus for the Packers. How come?
Well, see, this is more of a people's grade because I think like in time, we're going to look back at this C plus and we're going to give it a better grade. I think obviously it's going to get a C plus because the immediate contribution factor. When is Jordan Love going to contribute to the Green Bay Packers? And a team that got to the NFC Championship game and lost, actually got pummeled by the San Francisco 49ers twice last season, didn't appear to gain ground on maybe their big NFC rival. However, this is one that we'll have to look at in 3 or 4 years because Jordan Love certainly has some talent. He does have big-time potential, the arm, the off-platform throws. And if you go back and look at 2018 when he had 32 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions, I think we would be rating this guy a little differently. But it's a bit of a risk, particularly when you have Aaron Rodgers there. And we've seen quarterbacks play into their 40s. I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers will be one of those quarterbacks because there has been a little slippage in his game, but it is a bit of a risk factor. And then with A.J. Dillon stylistically hasn't really fit what the Packers have done traditionally. Yeah. But maybe Matt LaFleur wants to go and play like they played with the Rams, zone, downhill running, play action passing. It seems like Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst are trying to seize control of the team and not necessarily make it so quarterback dependent.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned for the fans, desperate in a wide receiver deep class to get a wide receiver for Aaron, and they do not. Instead, they trade up.
It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen for him.
That's all. Sorry, Aaron. I know we've never drafted
Sure.
a skill position player in the first round, and we finally did in your 15th season, and it was a quarterback to the Bears, and handed them a B-. Now, of course, part of this, because it's 2 years removed, you forget the first rounder is for Khalil Mack, arguably the best pass rusher in the NFL. So you give him a little bit of kudos there. It was a weird draft to grade because they had no ones, they had no threes, and they had no fours. So you get a look at this class. Cole Kmet, Jalen Johnson are your 2-2s. And then you're talking about taking some swings on, Gibson, Vilder, Mooney in the 5th. And then obviously your 7th round pick, you hope maybe impact on special teams or that they can just make the 53-man roster. But let's go to those 2-2s. Start with a positive. I love Jalen Johnson. Absolutely love. If you watched Utah football, you saw it. Size, speed, toughness, for days, torn labrum for the entire season, and yet he plays through it and ends up getting first-team All-Pac-12 and All-American nod, as well as he takes that team to the Pac-12 South title and the Pac-12 championship game where they lost to Oregon. And, with the way that Chuck Pagano wants to play football, all that pressure, you got to have a lot of man, and he is a tough, great man cover corner. So absolutely love that selection. Not really sure why they felt Cole Kmet was the pick. I mean, I know he's the number 1 tight end, but they already had 9 on their roster. 9 tight ends. They signed Harris and Jimmy Graham and drafted Adam Shaheen a couple seasons ago pretty high. So maybe this is a best player available, but they needed some depth along that offensive line. Ezra Cleveland would have been a nice add there. Instead, they go tight end. So, and also you give them a little bit of a nod, maybe a little bit tick up there for making that deal for Nick Foles. With the 4th, right. I guess he's also part of their draft class.
Yeah, I mean, that fits the Bears' philosophy. I mean, they had, 13 kickers on the roster a couple of years ago. It just needed to have the sample size to go ahead and finally get the right guy. So perhaps Cole Kmet ends up being that guy. I'm going to move on to the Detroit Lions here, who are picking at number 3. We already got the pro comparison for Jeff Okudah, an easy kind of just step right in, fill in for Darius Slay. A- for the Lions here. And look, while I think, I could have seen them go somewhere else other than corner here, I think, Okudah gives them an opportunity to get a player of a similar caliber eventually, and then obviously at a cheaper dollar amount. So I get that part of it. DeAndre Swift, I thought, was a pick I didn't necessarily expect, but he kind of fell to them right there at 35. So why not go for it? Make a commitment to upgrading that running game, which has been so lackluster in recent years for the Detroit Lions. I believe Reggie Bush, really the last guy to make any kind of headway in the run game, and now you pair him up there with Kerryon Johnson. Also in the run game, do not sleep on Jason Huntley from New Mexico State. Terrific receiving ability here. Also a really bonus kick return game. Was one of the best kick returners in football 2 years ago. A bunch of touchdowns to his credit in his career at New Mexico State. And then, of course, they cornered the market on the Okwara brothers, right? You already had Romeo. Now you draft Julian out of Notre Dame. And then they went back-to-back trying to fortify the interior of their offensive line with Jonah Jackson and Logan Stenberg. So all in all, I think a really nice job by Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia there, and I gave him an A-.
I'm going to jump in and take the Minnesota Vikings, and I gave the Vikings a smooth A- on this one because I thought the Vikings did a really good job with the picks they had, which they had plenty, but I thought that they did get their singles and their doubles. And I'll start off with Justin Jefferson. Man, you add Justin Jefferson to the mix, and I'm sorry, Packers fans, you needed a wide receiver. Well, they lost Stephon Diggs, and they went out and got a new Stephon Diggs for their offense, and that's what Justin Jefferson can do. But it didn't stop there. Jeff Gladney, to me, was the 3rd best corner in this draft. While he is only 5'10", a little over 5'10", he does have the ability to make a tremendous amount of plays on the football. And what they really need right now, what they're desperate for is cornerback. They got 2 of them. They got Jeff Gladney in the 2nd, who has first-round talent, in my estimation, and then they got Harrison Hand in the 5th round. So they took care of a need there, but they got a one surefire early starter in Jeff Gladney, and then Justin Jefferson is a surefire take-care-of-you type of guy as well. So I like that. I was also a fan of Ezra Cleveland where they got him in the 2nd round. They got him at pick number 58. Which he gives them a chance to be the starting left tackle within a couple of years. They get away from Riley Reeves' contract, which is getting a little bit high right now. And then I think a couple other picks that I really like. Cam Dantzler in the 3rd round. Now, Cam, to me, I watched him, studied him closely against Alabama and LSU. He gave up 3 catches for 21 yards against Alabama and LSU, and he had some really good reps against Jamar Chase, who we may be hearing about quite a bit next year.
Yeah,
but I can tell you right now, this is a draft that helps them now with some talent now. And I liked it, including later in the draft, Nate Stanley in the 7th round. I think that's a solid NFL backup. And if you can get a solid NFL backup in the 7th round, that's not bad. That's pretty good value for your 7th round pick.
Yeah, by all accounts, high character guy, 2-time captain. Obviously, he led Iowa to a bunch of wins in competition there in the Big Ten. All right, let's go to the AFC North. Our grades, 3 A's. What a jerk who gave the Steelers a B. It could have been a clean sweep.
Who's a hard grader?
Right? Well, I guess we'll get to that. Let's start, though, Lance. We're going to go back-to-back with you. You get us rolling with the number 1 overall pick, Bengals.
Well, I mean, I guess we can start on Joe Burrow. We know what we're dealing with Joe Burrow. You've got a quarterback who, to me, this is a chance to really change culture at the position. Andy Dalton was a fine quarterback for them. I think he's been much maligned. I think the whole organization has been much maligned. When you go back and look at the history of it, they actually perform better sometimes than people give them credit for. But Joe Burrow is a guy who I think brings hope for other players on the roster. And I think that's a really big deal. Now, that will last as long as his play lasts. And so to that end, I think it's important that you put the right guys around him. A.J. Green is there right now, and A.J. Green is still a player. By adding T. Higgins with the first pick of the 2nd round, you got another A.J. Green type guy. Not the same speed, but once they get beyond 10 yards down the line of scrimmage, they become very, very similar players because Higgins has a chance to win so many throws in the air. And you'll see these, these highlight reels, they're all about him owning catch space and going up over the top of people. It's not about the route running. It's not about the ability. I mean, that's ridiculous what he did there. And there's a lot of that stuff on tape. So now you got a quarterback who throws pinpoint accuracy. Well, don't worry about it, because when you miss, I'll be there to scoop it up. And that's what I love about T. Higgins. Logan Wilson and Akeem Davis-Gaither, back-to-back linebackers in the 3rd and 4th round. That was a big need for them. They got a smart linebacker in Wilson who is outstanding in coverage on 3rd downs. And then Akeem Davis-Gaither, I thought, was a really underrated linebacker in this process. App State has a nice squad. So I like what they did there. Akeem Adeniji in the 6th round has a chance to become an eventual starter at the guard spot. Khalid Kareem is, I think, a solid backup rotational edge. I like what the Bengals did. They had 7 total picks. I thought what they did with their picks was
didn't trade
substantial.
off of them once.
No, and they went and they got guys who are good football players.
Yeah.
And especially for the rounds they drafted them.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you. That's going with here for the Baltimore Ravens as well, guys. Absolute A here. I thought Eric DeCosta and company knocked it out of the park here, especially getting a player like Patrick Queen of his caliber there at the 28 spot. Thought he could have gone a few picks earlier, getting him there to fortify the second level of that defense that saw C.J. Mosley leave 2 years ago. And then, look, it just value with every single pick. It felt like J.K. Dobbins, just a perfect fit back there to team up with Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson in that run-oriented offense. Madubuike in the 3rd round, terrific. Duvernay going to be a nice addition to the wide receiver core, as is James Prochet, as long as he can stay healthy. 6th round there for Prochet, I loved. And, just come back with Broderick Washington in the 5th. I just felt like they got tremendous value at every turn, and for that, I gave them an A. Bucky, how did that Browns A round out for you?
Hey, look, man, the Ivy Leaguers got it right. The Ivy Leaguers did a really good job of finding value throughout the draft. I'm just saying, like, the analytic-driven thing, it produced some results this time. Jedrick Wills, right out the gate, gives them a starting tackle, someone who's physical. I know he'll have to flip over the left tackle, but remember, he played on Tua's blind side at Alabama. I don't think it will necessarily be an issue based on his athleticism and footwork. Grant Delpit in the 2nd round gives them a guy that is very, very talented on the 2nd level. He has all the athleticism and range that you desire. He just has to be a more consistent tackler to kind of live up to the hype that's surrounding him. And then the wild card of the class, in my estimation, is Jordan Elliott. Jordan Elliott has A-plus talent. He has outstanding first-step quickness and hand skills, but you just don't see the production to match the potential. You like to see the achievement match the activity, but he definitely has big-time game. We'll see if it plays out really well in the dog pound.
Well, I am the one of these guys is doing his own thing. One of these guys just isn't.
That's the low grader.
Yeah, I'm the low B here. Look, it started at A plus when they traded for Minka Fitzpatrick, right, with their number one, and he ends up not only becoming an All-Pro, but is in the conversation as the Defensive Player of the Year. So that's where it starts. But we were discussing it. I think it was you, Lance, that brought it up about players being ready to contribute immediately. This is the antithesis of that. I think all of these players, are projected with some development. You see Highsmith, Dotson there, McFarland to eventually make contributions. Now, there is a wild card, and it's right there at the front, their second-round pick, Chase Claypool. Man, we were at the Combine, and that was impressive. It was the story of the Combine. Someone that did something that we had never seen save one player, and that's Megatron. To be that big, 6'4", run a 4.42. And look, the production is there. Last season at Notre Dame, 66 grabs, 1037 yards, and 13 touchdowns. And you cannot ever attack the Steelers when it comes to drafting wide receivers, right? Because they have a track record, pardon the pun, with the track speed you see here from Chase Claypool of being able to figure out that position. So I credit him there, but you have got a Ben Roethlisberger that we don't know how much longer he's going to be there. And I think you've got, like you had said also, I think, Lance, that the high ceiling, but not quite sure that this class is ready to contribute immediately. Highsmith there, I just think all of these players may take a little bit of time for a team that has probably got their eye on winning a Super Bowl right now. So that is the NFC and the AFC North. When we return, we will get into the NFC and the AFC South. But first, how about a look at the new Amazon original comedy Upload, available on Prime Video, only on Prime Video, May 1st.
Settling in okay?
Yeah. Are you both,
Dead?
Yeah.
Yep.
Welcome to Lakeview, a digital afterlife environment. Enjoy.
The ads know us better than we know ourselves.
10 signs you're invading someone's personal space.
Sorry, bro.
So I understand you were in a bad place yesterday. It's only weird if you make it weird.
Time to get you some next-gen stats powered by AWS here as we're back on Draft Tonight with our Draft Grade special. Derek Brown, the Panthers knocked it out of the park there at the number 7 overall pick. Among this year's tackle class, no player comes in with a higher college production score, and one of just 9 guys to do that, a 95-plus score since 2015. He was a absolute game wrecker in the SEC for the Auburn Tigers, now looking to do that for Matt Rule's Carolina Panthers. And that was a bit of a theme for the Panthers, who went and did it. First team we've seen in the modern draft era go all defense in a draft. They got a B+. The Saints, leaders of the pack within A. Yes, but I want to start this. Yeah, finally, right? I want to start. Well, you gave out an A- to the Jets a little while back. So, Lance, why don't you kick us off here with your grade and explanation for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, for Tampa Bay, I mean, first and foremost, I really like the fact that they got a starting tackle to help Tom Brady, but not just Tom Brady. Let's forget that they helped the Tampa Bay Bucks, and they didn't have to trade up. There was a lot of talk about having to move up. Jason Light in Tampa Bay, they didn't panic. They sat still, and they got a tackle who I think is going to be a right tackle. But here's the great thing: he might be a left tackle. He can definitely play right tackle. Some people view him as a guard, so he should be a good blocker, a good offensive lineman in the NFL for years to come. But most importantly, I think he's a help right now on the right side for the Tampa Bay Bucks. So I love the fact that they didn't have to give up any picks, and they stayed true, and they went through the draft process with poise, and they got that guy. The next guy I loved, Antoine Winfield, in the second round. Now you're going to plug him in with Justin Evans, and I think they've got a really intriguing back-end secondary there with Antoine Winfield. He's just a straight baller. That's what he is. I texted Kevin Ross, the DB coach in Tampa Bay afterwards, said, boy, you got a heck of a player. He goes, really good football player. And I know he's very excited to have a guy with the bloodlines, a father who played in the league. He's got phenomenal instincts, And I think this is going to be the guy that we talk a lot about for years to come as an outstanding draft pick and a guy that kind of changed Tampa's defense from a secondary standpoint. Next up, I thought Keyshawn Vaughn was an important pick because they needed to find a guy that they liked. It's a little higher than I have him graded, but they had to have a second running back, and he's a physical back who runs it a little different than Ronald Jones, who's there right now. And Raymond Calais, I'm telling you right now, this 7th-round pick is going to surprise some people. If he wasn't smaller, this is like a 4th-round guy. The only thing that holds him back is he doesn't have great hands, so he's an undersized running back who can't really be used as a pass catcher, but he's got juice. So watch out for the 7th round, the 245th pick, Raymond Calais. I would be looking for him on the television screen in the upcoming season. I think he'll make it on the field very quickly for Tampa Bay.
Man, Lance, look at you just throwing out the verbal bouquets. I'm going to throw some my own way. I'm going to throw some to my former team, the Carolina Panthers, because I felt like the Carolina Panthers understood their weaknesses and they attacked them. To commit 7 picks to the defense, not even thinking about the offense. I wonder if the offensive coaches had the day off, like if they just even paid attention to the screen because everything came on defense. But yeah, Derek Brown upgrading the interior of that front line. He's a tempo changer, a culture changer in terms of how he plays, the effort, the energy, the nastiness. They have to play great defense in Carolina. That's just kind of the calling card of the franchise. He will help them get back to that. Yetur Gross-Matos being his teammate, long, lanky. When I looked at Gross-Matos, he reminded me a little bit of JPP, a little Jason Pierre-Paul in terms of his length, his ability to use his levers to create advantages as a pass rusher. And then there were people that criticized them for not taking Isaiah Simmons at 7. Well, at the bottom of the 2nd round, they go back and they get a guy who has similarities to Isaiah Simmons in terms of his versatility in game, and that's Jeremy Chin. Jeremy Chin is a safety with linebacker size and cornerback-like skills. He gives them a hybrid they can deploy in the middle of the field. I just like what Matt Rule did in his first year at the job. In the job.
I'll go with the A. It was only 4 picks, but absolutely love what the Saints did. And I think I'm in the minority, just kind of looking around. A lot of people were talking C's or low B's on this draft because they drafted Cesar Ruiz. And what I would guess is this is the best player available. When they selected, this was probably the number 1 guy on their board. Look, they have great tackles in Ramczyk and Armstead, and they have a great interior line. They paid Larry Warford. He's in the last year of his deal. They just paid Andres Pete. They drafted McCoy last year to be their center. But this is the last go-around likely for Drew Brees, and you cannot afford for an injury on the interior of that line to derail what is so important, and that's to keep him clean up the middle. So I totally get getting Ruiz. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they move on from Warford. It wouldn't be too big of a hit, and they'd end up saving about $8.5 million on their cap if they decide to plug Ruiz in at one of those guard positions. But he was the best interior lineman in the draft. Go get him. Make sure that most important position group on the team is locked up. They did that. Next, they get tremendous value in Zach Bond. I know in your draft guide, Lance, you made the comparison to Kyle Van Noy. Pretty darn good, versatile player, and that's exactly what Bond is. Obviously had the diluted sample at the combine. Maybe that's what led to his dropping, but man, athleticism is off the charts. You can deploy him in a number of different ways. Rush end. I mean, I guess a lot of people thought he might be a perfect fit in a 3-4 as that outside linebacker, but you know darn well they're going to figure out a way, Dennis Allen will, to get him on the field and play to his strengths. And then you had Adam Troutman. A lot of people thought he might be the number 1 tight end compared to Cole Kmet. I mean, look, is he a traditional do-everything tight end? No, he's basically a giant wide receiver. But turns out when you think back to Jimmy Graham, what Sean Payton's able to do with someone that has that kind of talent, I mean, you're talking about production for days at Dayton. And what was it? 70 grabs. I think mid-double-digit touchdowns. So this is a right now draft. It's Drew Brees last year, and you think about the heartbreak in the playoffs. They needed players to contribute immediately, and they got that in spades, I think, with their 4 picks in this draft.
Yeah, and guys, I gave the Falcons just a nice solid B here as I round out the NFC South. And again, I would term this as solid, not average. Okay. And the reason I'll do that is my favorite player in their draft class was Marlon Davidson, a defensive lineman out of Auburn in the 2nd round, but they filled the need and got third corner off the board in A.J. Terrell at number 16. I think there was a lot of debate over who that third corner would end up being for the Falcons. It was A.J. Terrell, the national champion from Clemson. But Marlon Davidson, terrific player. I love his confidence. I love his bravado. I love his versatility. Can you rush him off the edge a little bit? Can he set the edge versus the run? Yes. Can you kick him inside and try to get some interior disruption there? Yes. I think he can do all those types of things. I think Dan Quinn's going to love him. And then just lastly, Jalen Hawkins, if he can limit the aggression and take out some of those penalties on the targeting stuff that will not be tolerated in the NFL, I think he's got a chance to be a player that Dan Quinn really loves. He's a ball hawk back there coming from Cal, led the Pac-12 in interceptions, so I think he's got a chance too. So that's why I gave the Falcons just a nice solid B for their efforts. Now let's flip over to the AFC South, guys, where we show you the grades that we ended up giving here. The Texans falling into the C range here. Again, obviously had limited opportunity in this draft. Titans, not much better at a B minus, but a couple of B pluses. Bucky, we'll start with you, who you gave the Jaguars one of those B pluses, one of your former teams. Give us your explanation.
Oh, Duval. You got to be excited if you're because they got some solid players. Like, this is a pivotal draft, a critical draft for Dave Caldwell and Doug Marrone. And I think they did a good job of kind of reestablishing the culture that they want to create. C.J. Henderson, Kayvon Chasen, Laviska Shenault, those dudes are players. They're all ball players. They're all built the right way. They all are football first guys. And so I think that's really, really important. And C.J. Henderson is really important for them to find someone that can replace what they had on the island when they had Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Bouye. And C.J. Henderson, by many, was rated as the number one corner in the class. And part of that is due to his versatility. Not necessarily his versatility in being able to bounce around to a bunch of different spots, but the toolbox is full and it's polished. He can play up, he can play off, he can bail. You see him blitz off the edge. He is a high-end player, one that should be a star in that defense. And then Kayvon Chasen, I have called him kind of the biggest boom or bust guy, but he is an urgent athlete. He's explosive off the edge. And when he is wound up right and knows exactly what he's doing, man, he makes some plays. Look, you talk about Yannick Ngakoue. Well, if Yannick Ngakoue goes, they're replacing him with a guy that has similar skills. I like them kind of sticking to the traits that they prefer to see on that defense.
Yeah, I'm going to come back here with a B plus. Did I give him a B plus? I think I did, right, with the Colts. Yeah, sure. Let's call it a B plus for the Indianapolis Colts. So I think you have to include DeForest Buckner in this draft class too, because you get a guy in the prime of his career for a first round pick and an absolute Pro Bowl type All Pro player in the middle of that defense up front. Yes. So a B plus there, and I think they continued to kind of knock it out of the park by upgrading their offense with Michael Pittman Jr., Jonathan Taylor. I think Julian Blackmon from Utah will be a nice player for them. I've heard kind of some up and down reviews on Malik Hooker out of Ohio State, maybe on the move here at some point, but Julian Blackmon, really good. And then you go and get, a backup quarterback right now in the fourth round, maybe a future quarterback with some time to develop in Jacob Eason in the fourth round. I think that was a terrific value there for Chris Ballard and the Colts. I really love the selection of Danny Pinter as a guy who can help on the offensive line in that rotation if need be there in the fifth. So I really think they did a nice job of upgrading their team in a number of areas, and I tip my cap to Chris Ballard in that front office there for the Indianapolis Colts. Money, what you got next?
Yeah, I had the Titans B minus, just not crazy about it. And I guess I'll kind of put this into watching film perspective. We were doing offense. DJ was doing offensive linemen, and you get excited watching Mekhi Becton. You get excited watching Jedrick Wills, and then he puts on the tape of Andrew Thomas, and I fell asleep. Like, I literally fell asleep watching Isaiah Wilson and Andrew Thomas. You think about that wide zone scheme, and I don't think Isaiah Wilson has, I don't know if he has that quickness, athleticism. Obviously, they're more capable of evaluating talent than I am, but to me, that's a reach, and that's what happens when you go need over best player available. And it just seemed like Wilson was maybe more in that second round range, even maybe low end second round range. But look, offensive line talent is hard to find. So that's a bit of a projection there. I think, when you talk about, high ceiling and low floor, I kind of think about that in Fulton. And look, there's enough good there to overlook some of the issues, but this is someone that missed an entire season on suspension. This is someone that has, I think, enough, questionable tape to go with enough good tape. You wonder how much is he impacted by the amount of talent that was on that LSU team. But look, where he was drafted, that's great value for them. I love Darrington Evans to replace Dion Lewis there. That's how they kind of get up into that B range. And look, when it comes to Evans, not only is he a good explosive player, but you're talking about a winner, right? Someone who was the MVP of his league, the offensive MVP, the MVP of the championship game, the MVP of the bowl game. So you love that sort of pedigree and leadership to go along with the talent. So, and I know Lance and Bucky, we were on the field talking about it. We're all looking forward to the catapult motion of CMAC when it comes to preseason games. I'm very thankful that they took Cole there out of Hawaii so we can see that ridiculous.
It's a javelin.
Yeah.
He throws the javelin.
Here it comes.
Hey,
very much.
come on.
Right? Very much looking forward to that.
He's pretty
So that
sweet
is
though. He's got a headband, and it's the whole thing.
Look,
going
I'm
on.
all like I said. If I'm going to watch some preseason, I am very excited to watch some
You're
Tennessee
into that.
Titans preseason, just so I can see him maybe take some dude's head off. He just launches a throw that's on like a 5-yard slant. All right, that is your AFC and NFC South.
Wait.
What?
Texans.
Yeah, that's it.
Texans.
Oh, geez. I forgot the Texans.
Oh,
And angry
hater.
Lance. I'm sorry, Lance.
Ah,
I'm sorry,
man.
Lance. Hometown team.
After the last month of having to do Texans radio, talk about all the moves that everyone hates, now you're going to make me give them a C+. Sorry, Texans. Look, I think it's average. I think it's an average draft. There's some picks I like better than others, but let's take a look at what the Texans did. Now, first and foremost, love Ross Blacklock. Love that pick at number 40. He's a difficult player to block when he's on the move. Now, if he's staying right in front of you, you can get downhill on him and roll downhill, but that's not how you play him. If you let him play in the gaps, you let him move, you let him slant, he is a nemesis in the gaps. I mean, he is very difficult to block as a slanter in the run game. In pass pro, he is difficult because he can get from gap to gap. So you have to give him that freedom. And I think that's something that Anthony Weaver, the new defense coordinator, will do. Jonathan Greener, the first pick in the third round, the 90th pick. The Texans are about traits, height, weight, speed, and I will say he's got long arms, but the athletic numbers were not great, and there's not a lot of juice. I'm not sure that he's a lot better than Jacob Martin, who's a backup right now, Duke Ejiofor, who's going to come back from injury. I'm not sure that made more sense than getting a guy like Terrell Burgess, who was still on the board, who can play safety or can play nickel. And instead of that, they went in the fourth round and grabbed Charlie Heck. And I like Charlie Heck. He's a decent swing tackle option. He can play right tackle. He can play left tackle. Son of Andy Heck, the offensive line coach with the Chiefs. But you just gave Laramie Tunsil $1 zillion. You've got Titus Howard, who was a first-round pick at the right side. This was clearly a swing tackle selection, which is fine, but why not wait a little while, understand how the draft board should flow, and see if he's there for you with the second pick of the fourth round, which instead was John Reed. Now, Reed does have tremendous athletic ability. He really tested exceptionally well at the combine. A 4.59. His quickness numbers were off the charts. He plays a really sticky coverage underneath. Texans said that he can play outside or inside, but that ain't true. He's an inside slot corner, and I like him fine, but fourth is a little bit high. I know Bill O'Brien liked him because he's known him since he went to a kids camp there at Penn State, and you wouldn't believe how often that kind of stuff happens where a kid was in camp with a coach, who goes from college to pros, and any little connection they can get. Bravion Roy, who played with Baylor, is with Carolina now, and Matt Rule. Those kind of things happen. But I thought the Texans addressed some needs, but I think they got them with backups, honestly. I think they got a bunch of backups for the most part and average guys. Love Blacklock, and I love Isaiah Coulter. I do want to mention that. I thought he's a fantastic fifth-round pick or sixth-round pick, wherever they got him. He's got some ability.
A lot of folks had Coulter as their sleeper wide receiver, so good value there. All right, you got it in. Lance, wanted to make sure you took your shots at your hometown team on the Texas radio station.
I appreciate that.
And then we will wrap it up when we return. We have got your West grades, AFC and NFC West, as we wrap up all of our grades before we get to some of our favorite moments from the 2020 draft. So we'll head west next. Well, like we see so often in the world of football, East Coast bias. The West goes last, but we will wrap it up with the AFC and the NFC. You see the West, Broncos get the only A of the bunch. Chargers, Chiefs with a B+. Raiders with the B. Buck, why don't you get us started with the Chargers and that B+ grade?
Man, what I like, and I think what is important, we can't talk enough about it, is how players fit into a team's scheme. And I think the Chargers got guys that really, really fit their scheme. When you start with the quarterback, Justin Herbert, look, it was met with some mixed reaction. Did they really love him? Did they miss out on Tua? And I think actually this is the right fit for the way that they want to play under Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn has said in the offseason that he wanted to get back to really running a Shanahan-type system. He played in that system in Denver, won 2 Super Bowls. And Justin Herbert plays well in that because he's big, he's athletic, he has a big arm. He is one of the better play-action passers that was in this draft class. And when you put him on the move, like we saw at the end of the year in the Pac-12 title game, in the Rose Bowl, he can hurt you as a dual threat. Not saying that he's an A-level runner, but he can run enough to make plays. I think it's a great fit. And then Kenneth Murray gives them something that they needed at the second level. You got to be able to chase the Kansas City Chiefs and some of these speed offenses that are out there. And he's a sideline-to-sideline player, great instincts and awareness. And look, this is a defense that prides itself on being fast. It's a very simple system, so you can let your guys kind of play with their hair on fire. I think his ability to make plays on the perimeter with Derwin James backing him up, it helps the Chargers compete at a high level in the division.
Yeah, I thought the Chargers really knocked it out with those 2 picks there in the first round. And, give up some picks to get back into the first, but go get your guy. And I kind of appreciate that aggressive mindset there from Tom Telesco and company. I'm going to get you to the Kansas City Chiefs here, who picked with the final selection of the first round. And got a running back. We kind of thought that might be their choice, but it ends up being Clyde Edwards-Helaire, not DeAndre Swift or not Jonathan Taylor. And look, this is a guy, smaller in stature, but nothing small about his production, both in the run game and in the pass game. Caught over 50 balls this year for the national champion LSU Tigers. Then they come back with their next pick, and they absolutely go, height, weight, speed, all the traits guy with Willie Gay from Mississippi State, who set the turf on fire with his 40 time at the combine. And then I really like the pick of L'Jarius Sneed. A little bit of versatility as a defensive back, played safety his final year at Louisiana Tech, but maybe more comfortable at corner, longer cornerback there to help Kansas City Chiefs team that could use a little extra depth back there in the secondary. And I think he's a guy that can make some plays, with the ball in his hands too, and make some plays on the ball. And I think he'll find a home there for Steve Spagnuolo's defense. So overall, I gave the Chiefs a B+. Just thought it was a nice draft for where they were picking at the tail end of all the rounds.
I love that, Rhett. And this happened to me, Rhett, when I was calling Big Ten games. Every Big Ten player I loved. Nobody loves Conference USA players like Rhett. Conference USA players. You are guaranteed. If you got someone out of Charlotte or La Tech or North Texas in the 5th to the 7th round, you are going to
get to Amik Robertson right here with Lance.
Let me start with the Raiders. I'm going to work my way from the back to the top. I gave him a B, but primarily I'd give him an A+ if it was just up to me with the 4th round pick at 139, Amik Robertson. You see how I did that for you, Rhett? Amik Robertson is the truth. We'll get to him in a second. A lot of times teams make a decision philosophically to draft according to who the lead dog is in the division. And it just so happens that you have the Super Bowl champs in your division. So Henry Ruggs, speed kills, where they're hoping he can be another Tyreek Hill, obviously a little different type of wide receiver, but the same type of explosiveness. And I think one of the things that Henry Ruggs is going to do for you, a lot's going to be made about the 4.2 40 and his ability to get down the field. I'm not sure that he's a great fit for Derek Carr or Mariota. To me, this is about who the next quarterback is going to be and throwing to. But the other thing he really does well that can help the quarterback right now, yes, he has the ability to get deep. Yes, he has the ability to back safeties off the line of scrimmage to help your running game. But those little short catch and run stuff that he does, that is a major factor. There's so many catch and run touchdowns in that Alabama offense, and Ruggs was a big part of that. So I think that's something that he's really going to add a lot to the table. I wasn't crazy about Damon Arnett, where they got him in the first. I think to me, he's more of a second, third. I also like him maybe as a big bully on the slot. We're going to find it out. A lot of teams liked him a lot better than I did. So we'll see how that one works out. It's clearly a huge need, but they got they got Amik Robertson, who's a little smaller in the 4th round, but has phenomenal ball skills as well. But this guy's going to be a legit player, Amik Robertson. I love what they did in the middle part. Lynn Bowden is a very versatile running back / zone read quarterback / wide receiver from the slot. I think that's a great toy for John Gruden to use. Brian Edwards, they got him in the 3rd round with pick 81. That's a 2nd round talent. He's really good, just coming off a knee injury. And then Tanner Muse, we'll see if he can be the Matt Milano, another Clemson guy, another high football character guy he's basically just fielding Clemson at this point and SEC players. And then John Simpson. Luckily, they were able to find another Clemson player on the board in the 4th round. But for me, I actually had a much higher grade on John Simpson than a lot of people did. He's big, he's wide, and I think he's got some power. And I think he could become a starter fairly early for the Raiders. So I like what the Raiders did. I give them a solid B. The Arnett pick for me was just so-so, but I like most of what the Raiders did.
I think you're going to see, if you pick a team as the biggest winner from the 2020 draft, the Broncos are going to be on a lot of folks' lists. And it comes down to, do you believe in Drew Lock, right? He finishes the season 4-1. There's some good, there's some not so good there in that mix. Of course, think about that defense of the Broncos and how they play into victories compared to losses as well. But no excuses moving forward with this draft class. When you look at the top 2 picks in Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, now you have one of the best X receivers in the league, a guy who can dominate one-on-one in Cortland Sutton. You pair that with Jerry Jeudy at the Z, the best route runner in this class, a do-everything receiver, and then in the slot you get KJ Hamler. My God, look out. You know exactly where these guys are going to line up, and it's hey, here we are. Good luck stopping it. I love the Lloyd Cushenberry pick to help out in the interior of that line. And Okue Bunum. There we go. I got it right. Of course, you help out Drew Lock as well. His former college teammate at tight end. High ceiling, certainly with the traits and the size. So I'll just mention Derek Tuska, because why not get a 7th rounder in there when they come out of North Dakota State to play some special teams. But it's all about the top of this draft. And look, corners, when it comes to secondary, they lose Chris Harris, they get Ojemudia out of Iowa, and that's probably, I don't know whether or not he'll come in and start right away, but that was a position they needed to address. And I think you look at the track record there of secondary players out of Iowa, and they do pretty darn well. So all in all, just a bang up draft for John Elway, who appears to maybe have found his quarterback after a lot of swings at it, and has now given him all the tools to succeed with what is still a very, very good stout defense for Vic Fangio and the Denver Broncos, who close strong. Here we go to the NFC West draft grades. We have a single A to the 49ers, and then a full range of Bs, from the B+ of the Rams to the B- of the Cardinals, with the B of the Seahawks in between. Let's start with the lowest here. Lance, you had the Cardinals, you gave them a B-.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously, I love Isaiah Simmons. That selection is fantastic. Let's focus on that for a second. I thought that was one of the best picks of the 1st round because of what it specifically means in that division. The ability to cover a tight end like Garrett Kittle, the ability to spy, as you see here, a quarterback like Russell Wilson. I think Isaiah Simmons is an ascending player who still has to learn to play down near the line of scrimmage from understanding fits, angles, how to handle the run. Now, you want to run and chase. You're not going to find many better than Isaiah Simmons. Reminds me of Darius Leonard when it comes to a run and chase type of linebacker and what he could be. So I love that selection. I think I'm a big fan of what it means to that team and what it means in that division. I think once you get outside of there, Josh Jones is a good value pick in the 3rd round. But I do question why so many teams in such a tackle-needy league let Josh Jones go to 72. That is a big concern for me. I think Leki Fotu is just okay on the interior. I don't know that he's going to have a big impact on that defense. Rashard Lawrence is a try-hard guy, high football character, willing to play through pain, has had some injury concerns you have to look out for, and just kind of a rotational defensive lineman there in the 4th round. Evan Weaver, I call him a rambunctious tackle sponge in my draft profile. He's also a perennial grudge holder. So the fact that anyone thinks there's any kind of weaknesses to him, I don't think is going to sit well. Yeah. But as an athlete, he's just kind of a guy. I mean, he's just kind of a guy who's a really smart, instinctive football player. I don't think he's going to really change the defense there in the 6th. And then Eno Benjamin, I think you could argue, is the best value in the whole board in the 7th round, who I do think should fit into that offense. So Yeah, I didn't love what they did, but I liked elements of it. I just didn't see enough impact. I wanted to see a little more impact instead of rotational guys.
Well, you want to talk about impact, an A for the San Francisco 49ers. And they end up, when it comes to juggling that salary cap and trying to make the pieces fit, Buckner, with that giant deal that you knew he was going to get, is potentially the best, or I should say second best, of course, defensive interior lineman in the NFL. And he got it from Indianapolis. What do? They replace him with a younger, cheaper. And I think because it was such a compelling story and such a great story in Kinlaw, that what got lost is how exceptional a player that he is, and how he is going to be able to immediately make an impact on this team, and what Robert Saleh wants to do on that defense with that rotation and just waves of defensive linemen coming at you. And he can continue to do that now with Kinlaw. He is so good, and that means you don't miss a beat there. Well, you're going to miss a beat. It's DeForest Buckner, but you have an opportunity, younger, cheaper. Now, when you talk about Ayuk, you mentioned Eno Benjamin. Anybody that watched a lot of Arizona State football got to see this dude. And it is very, very reminiscent, I think. And that's what was so crazy to me, is people that were knocking this, like, well, it's like Deebo Samuel. Yeah, now you got two of those guys that can do so many different things, from so many different positions. And you combine that with the brain of Kyle Shanahan. My God, good God help you. Trying to figure that out with all the pre-snap motion that causes so much stress on a defense, having he and Samuel out there. And of course, the other reason why you get an A, heck, you know what? I'm just going to add the plus right now. Give them the plus. They got Trent Williams, the best left tackle in the league. Joe Staley retires, and they go out and get Trent Williams as part of this draft class. So you talk, look, it doesn't matter. The 5th, 6th, 7th, okay, fine. Work on the back end. But when you have this much talent on a team that nearly won the Super Bowl, one good pass from Jimmy Garoppolo to Emmanuel Sanders, and they're your Super Bowl champions, the young guys aren't going to make much of an impact. They found two guys at the top of the draft that I do believe will be able to come in and contribute immediately for one of the most talented rosters in the league.
Yeah, guys, I'll take you to the LA Rams here, where, it just kind of fits with the growing tradition of not having a first-round pick. And I don't know, they may not pick in the first round ever again. But they, I think, made really good work of their 2 second-round picks, getting Cam Akers, terrific running back out of Florida State, and had some really nice production behind a very suspect offensive line the last couple of years. Just a player I really like to put there in the backfield with Todd Gurley no longer there. Team him up with Darrell Henderson, who they got a year ago on day 2. And then Van Jefferson, I love the idea of continuing to fortify a position of strength. We know the receiving core has been a strength of the Rams when you consider Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp, even Josh Reynolds in there as well. Cooks is gone. Now you insert Van Jefferson there, and I think DJ had his comp for Van Jefferson as Cooper Kupp. So now you got two of them right there with you, two really good, productive players, smooth, technical route runner, which I really liked. And then you take a chance on a Terrell Lewis, who obviously has an injury history, but when healthy could provide some edge rush presence there on defense. And then, the rest of the draft is kind of how I ended up getting to the B+. Just didn't have that first round pick. And I think overall they made really good work of the resources that they had in this draft. Bucky, do you want to finish off the Seahawks with us in the NFC West?
Yeah, I think the Seattle Seahawks were solid. I think they surprised some by getting Jordan Brooks where they got him. But when you look at him, he's a tackling machine. He's all over the place, athletic. You add more speed to the second level of that defense, putting him alongside Bobby Wagner, and you have to like it. And then the pass rusher that they picked up later, Alton Robinson, is someone that's very intriguing to me. 19 and a half career sacks, but if you go back and look at 2018, he had 10. So he does have some pass rush ability. You like to think that the Seattle Seahawks can develop it. And then the guy who, man, I can't believe I haven't talked about this guy, but I think he has an opportunity to really pop in Seattle. Freddie Swain, the wide receiver from Florida. We have seen the Seattle Seahawks have guys that have basically come out of the crypt and become big-time contributors to them on their offense. This guy is a route runner. He's tough. He has some sneaky dynamic ability to him. Keeper, just remember the name, Freddie Swain, when he starts making plays for the Seattle Seahawks. I think they may have found one.
Okay. All right.
Call him the Crypt Keeper.
Dig it. Yes, of course.
After that,
it's a terrific nickname that Bucky Brooks has just bestowed on our friend Freddie. All right, guys, we are winding down here on Draft Tonight, but when we come back, our final thoughts from what was one of the coolest and most unique drafts we have ever seen in NFL history, and we will have those thoughts for you right after this quick break. Hi, welcome back, everybody. Draft Tonight here with an absolute astounding impact that the Draft-a-thon had over the course of the last 3 days. Checking out the final tallies here, the NFL family has now collectively raised more than $100 million to help stop the spread of COVID-19, to help those impacted by the virus. Truly amazing work over the last 3 days, and you can still help. You can still go to NFL.com/relief to donate. I mean, that was absolutely the favorite moment, I think, probably from all of us here at the draft, seeing it used for good like that. But outside of the Draft-a-thon, Bucky, what else stood out to you as a favorite moment from this 2020 NFL draft?
I mean, I think the favorite moment for me is just everybody realizing their dreams. From my unique perspective, having been drafted, like I can always remember what that feeling is like. And regardless of whether you go in the first round or in the seventh round, to see those guys, to see those families excited because their kids, the people they're close to, have an opportunity to get one step closer to realizing a dream. I think that is the stuff that mattered to me. And even with the virtual draft, still being able to see these small, intimate family settings where people are excited about their kids having an opportunity to do something that they dreamt about for a long time. I think that's very, very exciting.
I'm trying to find the exact pick here. I've got it on my phone, and it's in the third round, it looks like, with Josiah DeGuara. When the commissioner was so kicked back, it officially became a kickback when the commissioner was on the recliner, and he was like, to me, and he had his little thing. You know, this is a league that's
Joey D going to the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, it's buttoned up and this, that, and the other, right? I felt this felt very self-deprecating in some ways. I thought it was a great look for the commissioner. I thought it was fun. I thought it captured what this draft was, which was different, and I think everyone leaned into it, from the production side to the players to the fans to everybody, and I wouldn't have blamed him if he had some rocket fuel on his side like Michael Jordan does in the documentary, but instead he had M&M, so I also respect that. And the M&M chart, the M&M jar kept getting lower and lower as the rounds went by. So that was my favorite moment. I thought the commissioners, I think his response and reaction as the draft kept going on kind of mirrored ours, where we enjoyed it. But let's face it, we're all watching, we're doing shows in shorts right now. You can't tell, but I guarantee I am. I'm very comfortable in this picture right here.
As am I, Lance. And because I'm such a nasty soul, I'm going to do two, because there is one positive. I loved seeing all the kids. I think sometimes we forget that these general managers and head coaches have families, the way they move around, how often there's turnover at the position. You forget that there are kids in schools that have friends that they are going to move away from because it is so hard to stay in one place in this league. And I think you're reminded of that when you're taking shots and you're a fan at the general managers. What a stupid pick. You deserve to be fired. And you say, oh, yeah, there's 3 kids there. And they live in a neighborhood with friends and go to schools with friends. And I think it helps humanize the position a little bit and maybe helps put things in perspective, from Matt Rule's kids doing a little cheerleading to it was great, to guys dressed up in outfits, but I do need to balance that out, because I do need to contribute some snark. I think if that was my favorite, the 1A moment is that the Packers took Jordan Love, and how happy that makes me. And I had to hear about how upset Aaron Rodgers is. God forbid, Aaron Rodgers is so hot. Oh, he's so fired up right now. Oh darn. Darn. Aaron Rodgers is super upset over that selection. So yeah, there's both ends of the spectrum for me.
I'm with you. And look, Money, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth with your 1A. I think the families, I'm a sucker for that. I'm a sucker for the hugs, and just understanding how much goes into each pick, and celebrating each pick with those who you don't get to spend a ton of time with during this process, although that was changed a little bit this year, I think was really cool. And then the emotional moments from the players, right? Cesar Ruiz just like breaking down in tears, guys who have dealt with some adversity in their lives and have risen above it, and now getting to see their realized. It's the most hopeful weekend on the NFL calendar, and I think that everybody's team has a shot right now. So I think it's really cool, and we can continue that hope into an on-time start of the 2020 NFL season as we are continuing to keep our fingers crossed for that. But until then, I will say thanks so much for hanging out with us here on Draft Tonight. For Bucky Brooks and Lance Zerline and Matt Money Smith, I am Rhett Lewis. Thank you to all of you for hanging out with us, to all of the hardworking producers and tech team for getting us online each of the last 4 days. We appreciate it. And we say continued and wish you continued health. And we'll see you next time. Shorts, there they are.